Hello, I am Monique Hammond, and I thank you very much for joining me today for a presentation on hearing loss, or more precisely on noise-induced hearing loss, which continues to be a stubborn and an invisible injury throughout the industry and wherever jobs come with a loud environment. Now, I took my excellent hearing so totally for granted, just like everybody else does. And then one day I went deaf in my left ear in a matter of 4 hours, and bam, life changed. And according to my doctors, a very loud noise exposure the day before at a church fundraiser contributed greatly to my problems. And so that's the day when I became a staunch enemy of excessively loud sound. Now, eventually this whole episode also cost me my job as a hospital pharmacist. And this is when it sunk in that yes, there is so much more to hearing loss than not hearing very well, that it becomes very quickly a phenomenal quality of life issue, and that I had a lot to learn. And so in my book, What Did You Say? An Unexpected Journey into the World of Hearing Loss, I share my story and also what I had to learn the hard way, because I want people to learn from me and with me. Eventually, however, that life-changing experience also led to a new mission for my life, and that mission is to keep people hearing better longer. And it is precisely that mission that brings me here to you today. Now, noise is everywhere, and our world seems to be becoming actually louder by the day. And so our ears are under sound assault, even in places where we least expect it, as I found out. And so I never leave the house anymore without ear protection of some kind. Our social and leisure activities have become as loud, if not louder, than those exposures that we actually have at our work. And so what happens in one place, however, affects the other. Because remember, I did not sustain that insanely loud noise exposure during my work, but during my social and leisure time, but it affected my work because eventually I lost that job. I simply could not function safely and effectively anymore. And safe and effective, those are two big notions in the workplace. But I couldn't do that anymore in this pharmacy that had become so horrendously loud to me, and where all of a sudden I had trouble sorting out speechy noise. People seemed to mumble. They had to repeat to me what I was not understanding or what I had misinterpreted. And those are all classic symptoms of hearing loss. In order to appreciate noise-induced hearing loss and the damage that causes it, we first must review how we hear. We must also remember that a sound wave is actually a pressure wave, and it is that pressure that gives sound its volume or its loudness. But now let's take a look at how the ear processes sound. This is a very simplified diagram of how the different sections of the ear are laid out. In essence, the ear has 3 parts: the external ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. The external ear is open to the outside air. It includes the pinna, which is the visible portion of the ear, and the ear canal. The ear canal ends at the eardrum, which marks the transition between the external and the middle ear. The middle ear is an air-filled chamber. It is drained by the eustachian tube, which connects the middle ear to the throat. The middle ear contains 3 tiny bones that are important for the transfer of sound vibrations to the inner ear. The middle ear can give us hearing trouble, for instance, when we have a cold or an ear infection. Especially parents are familiar with this situation. Fluid accumulates in the middle ear cavity and the eustachian tube might not function properly. All of this does not only cause discomfort, but it also interferes with the transmission of sound. People may say that they have fluctuating hearing, or that they are hearing as if they were submerged underwater. The inner ear is involved with both balance and hearing. Messages for balance or equilibrium are carried to the brain by the vestibular or balance nerve. Messages for hearing are carried to the brain by the cochlear or hearing nerve. So in the end, how does sound actually move through the ear? Sound waves that travel through the air are captured by the visible external portion of the ear. They are guided down the ear canal and hit the eardrum, which begins to vibrate. These vibrations now travel through the middle ear across a relay chain made by 3 tiny bones. The last little bone eventually knocks at a structure called the oval window, which is the direct connection with the inner ear. It is important to note that the inner ear is filled with fluid. As we are interested in the hearing portion of the inner ear, we direct our attention to the snail-shaped organ on the bottom of the diagram, the cochlea. The cochlea is the inner ear hearing organ, and in real life it's about the size of a pea. And inside each cochlea we have some 20,000 very finely tuned but rather fragile hearing cells. 20,000 per ear, that's all we get for a lifetime. As the third little bone taps against the oval window, the mechanical knock causes fluid ripples to form in the inner ear. And these ripples now travel into the cochlea and wash over the hearing cells. The hearing cells then translate the fluid motion into electrical signals. The hearing nerve or cochlear nerve then relays these electrical signals to the hearing portion of the brain, where they are sorted and interpreted and given meaning to. And so essentially, we hear with our brain. How do ears become sound damaged, and where does that damage occur? And here we have to recall that the more pressure a sound wave has, the stronger that sound level will be. As excessively strong sound pressure waves tear through the ear, they raise the fluid pressure in the cochlea to damaging levels. And so, with every loud noise insult, exceedingly strong fluid pressure stresses and exhausts the hearing cells until they weaken, and over time many of them may even die. In humans, these hearing cells do not regenerate themselves the way they do in birds and fish. For us, any damage is permanent. Eventually, the hearing nerve itself also suffers, as many of the connections between the hearing cells and the hearing nerve erode away. As more and more hearing cells are damaged, as more and more nerve connections fail, the electrical signals that travel from the cochlea to the brain become weak and unclear, and the brain will have trouble sorting them out and interpreting them. And that is when sound and music and speech all appear dull to us and muffled, simply because we have hearing loss. What might noise-induced inner ear damage look like? And here I invite you to imagine a healthy wheat field that is being attacked by strong storms. And afterwards there are various degrees of destruction, ranging from mild all the way to total devastation. Given time, our inner ears might begin to look something like that. Although it is preventable, noise-induced hearing damage, and with that noise-induced hearing loss, is also permanent and cumulative. And that means that every single insult counts, from the time that we are born to the time that we die. Also, noise-induced hearing loss can come with potential side effects, such as tinnitus or tinnitus, the infamous buzzing or ringing in the ears that is generated by the brain. There are many reasons why people can have tinnitus. However, in most cases, it is a sign of some degree of hearing damage or hearing loss. If ringing in the ears happens after a loud sound event, we should consider ourselves seriously warned. Tinnitus may be temporary at first, but with repeated excessive noise exposures, it will eventually become continuous and unrelenting. So the faster we change our bias towards excessive sound, turn down the volume, and learn to protect the ears from noise, the better it is. And then there are the noise sensitivities that can make the world appear so terribly loud. Ears never ever become used to excessively loud sound. They do not become immune to it. They do not become tolerant to it. Not at any age. All they do become is the deafer to it. Preventing noise-induced damage and preventing, therefore, noise-induced hearing loss is our best bet, and actually it is our only bet. And so the time for us to become noise-wise and hearing-smart is right now, today, this minute. How loud is it? And how long can we remain at certain noise levels with unprotected ears while remaining at least somewhat safe? And this brings us to the daily or 24 hours maximum noise exposure times for unprotected ears. And here I will look at some data that comes to us from the CDC and NIOSH, the Center for Disease Control and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. However, smartphone apps are also often consulted on the issue, provided that the app information comes from reliable sources. Daily maximum noise exposures are dependent on the time of exposure and the sound level per 24 hours. And the sound levels are measured in a unit called the decibel or the dB. Once the maximum daily noise exposure has been reached, then we must listen for the rest of the day, for the rest of those 24 hours, to sound levels well in the ear safety zone, because the ears deserve and need a rest. And if during that 24 hours we still have to perform tasks that might involve ear-damaging sound levels, well, then we have to wear ear protection. But now let's look at some examples to illustrate. The first number that concerns us is 85 decibels or dBs, because it is the maximum sound volume allowed for unprotected ears. This tells us that the ear safe zone lies well below 85 decibels. How loud about are 85 decibels? Oh, it's about as loud as a cafeteria at lunchtime when it is the busiest. That's actually already quite loud. And how long can we linger at that sound level? Or about 8 hours out of 24 hours, and then the ears need a rest. At work, once sound levels reach 85 dB and more, we must protect our ears with earplugs or earmuffs. Hearing protection that is correctly applied and consistently used in loud places lowers dangerous sound levels that would otherwise blast the inner ears to fewer than 85 decibels. Now compare 85 dBs to 60 dBs, which is the volume for normal talking in a quiet place. There is no limit on that, because 60 dBs are well under the 85 dB limit.
What do you think?
We'll talk about it soon, okay? I promise, all right? Nice work.
Power tools are notoriously loud and as a rule call for ear protection. How about the screaming 110 decibels of a power saw or a chainsaw? How long can we linger? 90 seconds, a minute and a half, and that is the maximum exposure per 24 hours, and then the ears do need again a rest. It is usually said that noise-induced hearing loss happens slowly over a lifetime, but that is often not so, as I found out. Also, very loud, explosion-like sounds, referred to as impulse sounds, can cause permanent and immediate hearing damage. Certainly, at work, when it becomes loud, we have to protect our ears. But what do we do at home, in the basement or in the garage, where we work with oftentimes the same kind of power tools that we use at work? If 85 decibels or dBs mark the noise limit on the job, they also mark the noise limit off the job. At work and at home, the same precautions apply for saving our hearing. There is plenty of incentive for us to protect our ears from excessively loud sound. Hearing protection gives us immediate control over a loud environment and brings us back into that ear safety zone. However, for hearing protection, such as earmuffs and earplugs, to be effective, they have to be fitted correctly. They have to also be correctly applied according to the directions of the manufacturer every single time that they are used, and they also have to be used consistently in loud environments. Hearing protection that is not on the ears or in the ears is of no value. If you ever have problems with your hearing protection, immediately notify your safety officers. They can help, they want to help, but they have to know about the issue. In this case, workplace safety is also anchored very much in timely communication. So why might we protect our ears in excessively loud sound? Or we certainly want to do so to preserve our hearing, a most precious sense. But we also want to safeguard our health and wellness that hearing loss so quickly undermines. We want to maintain productivity on the job and off the job, but mostly we want to preserve our quality of life. There is so much to be heard, to be listened to be enjoyed and to be learned. But as I found out the hard way, hearing loss almost immediately affects every aspect of a person's life. It affects us socially and emotionally, professionally and financially, to all of which I most emphatically testify. And now researchers are looking into possible links between hearing loss and dementia. Protecting our ears from excessively loud sound is an investment. It is an investment in our quality of life for now and for the future, so that indeed we may be hearing better longer, and so that the time never comes where the music dies.